Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guests, Marcus and Sheila Gillette. Now, Sheila is the channel for Theo, and both Marcus and Sheila host the popular web series Ask Theo Live. Now, additionally, they also share Theo's wisdom through public Theo experiences, television and radio appearances worldwide, and in live and online mentoring programs. Now, they're also co authors of the book The Soul Truth, A Guide to Inner Peace, and Sheila is also the author of her first groundbreaking book, The Fifth Dimension Channels to a New Reality. Now, you may also recognize Sheila and Theo from Abraham Hicks Publications as the mentors to Esther as she opened to channeling Abraham in 1984. Marcus and Sheila Gillette, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. It's really good to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. We're really happy to be here with you today.
It is lovely to have you guys back on. The last time I saw you guys was in California. You're now in Arizona. And obviously, you guys came on for the channeling docuseries. Thank you both so very much for coming on for that. I want to link that docuseries in the description below in this video. So much is going to be linked in there. Over 120,000 views on that video, which is great. You know, people loved you. Thank you for what you provided for the docuseries so far, both of you.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. You know, it's our purpose, really, when I started working with Theo, is to share that wisdom in the world with all who have ears to hear and all who want to have their questions answered. So it was such a gift for us when you called to have that time together. We so enjoyed it. You know, meeting a soul brother. We didn't know each other until we met that day. And what a treat.
Yeah,
What a treat. And it's a treat to be back talking with you again.
I think we had a lot more fun that day than we anticipated, Kevin. It was really great. And it is fun to be back with you.
I just remember your little doggy being on the sofa as well.
As a matter of fact, he's right here.
He's right there, yeah.
He might pop up yet.
Yeah. Well, there's something interesting Mum and Dad are talking about now. Yeah, well, I bet there's so much you guys have gone through just recently as well, like I say, the move and everything. And just why Arizona as well? I mean, I love the place, but what was the attraction there for you?
Well, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I asked Sheila just a really simple question. I said, if you could live anywhere in the world, and you can because we work out of our homes. I said, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you want to live? And without a moment's hesitation, she said, I want to move back to Scottsdale. We lived here for 8 years ago. And the second she said, I want to move back to Scottsdale, and every single fiber of my being knew that we were moving back to Scottsdale. And it's been a great move. Yeah, it's been almost 2 years now. I'm really happy.
You knew it, didn't you? I mean, you've been developing your sort of psychic and inner voice abilities for a long time, and you've learned to trust that, haven't you?
Absolutely. And what I know is I listen to my body as well. And being in Arizona, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, that triangle, energetically, the Rocky Mountains, I physically feel better in these locations. And it's the latitudinal, longitudinal lines, but I never felt well. I mean, vibrant and well in California. It wasn't my energy place, although absolutely spectacularly beautiful. But I just knew how, when we lived here before, how great I felt. I loved the lifestyle. I definitely loved the architecture in the Southwest, and it just speaks to my soul. So there wasn't a moment's hesitation at all to come back here, and just have loved every minute.
Yeah, absolutely, and because you trusted it, and there are no wrong or right sort of answers. Sometimes outcomes in the end. You know, if you've listened and it's taking you on the path it's taking you, you're better for it in some respects, even though it might seem a bit turbulent. Going through that process, it was the right thing, because sometimes we can say, can't we, that I listened to that voice, it let me down, I'll never listen to it again, I just want to stick with the mentor next time. But actually, it didn't let you down. it led you to where you
You
need
know
to be.
what? That never lets me down. What lets me down is the mental, is the intellect, because we are also intuitively aligned. Our higher power is always speaking to us. We always know the truth. The first impression is always the right one. How many times have we been driving down the road? This has happened to me many times, and I'm looking for someplace before GPS, and my intuition is turn right, and my intellect overrides it and goes, oh, no, 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 that's wrong. And of course I turn left only to find my intuition was correct. And it's always illogical. And that's why we tend to try to pay attention to the brain, to the intellect, but it always works for me. And so I've learned over the years, doing this work for so many years, not to discount it, just to pay attention.
No, that's right. And I want to get into what I call the hidden abilities, and obviously intuition is one of them. Just before we start this, though, for those who may not have come across you before, just very, very briefly, just and I know this is difficult because there's so much, there's such a big journey that you've been on, but just tell us about what you do as well, because there's obviously a story there.
Well, I am the direct voice channel medium for 12 archangels known as Theo. And I've been doing this work for over 5 decades. And I have 2 books, The Fifth Dimension, Channels to a New Reality, and a book co-authored with my husband, Marcus, called The Soul Truth, A Guide to Inner Peace. We do many, many mentoring programs, and I've mentored many people and opening up to their intuitive powers, their psychic abilities, and the trust in that. Many of your listeners may know of Esther Hicks and Abraham. They were Esther was a client of mine, and Theo inspired her to start channeling Abraham and many others. It's been just such a blessing to assist people in really seeing how powerful they are, because we're all psychic. We really are. We may call it something else, but we all have those intuitive abilities. And so I love assisting people in that fuller remembering of who they are.
Absolutely. And just your website is just so that people can go straight there as well.
It's asktheo.com.
Asktheo.com. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I would say to people watching this right now, if you want to get a bit of a backstory to Sheila and Marcus, just go to the link below, which will in the description, which is the interview that they both did with us, which really goes in depth into their story. Because I mean, you had a near-death experience as well, and that was covered fully in that interview, and that was that transformed you as well, didn't it? That opened up your abilities,
Absolutely.
or kind of shook you up in a sense to,
yes,
to do
changed
this
my
work.
life entirely.
Yeah,
definitely it did. And because of being able to do what I do and having written the first book, The Fifth Dimension, I got to meet my husband. And we are co-partners and just love working together.
Well, the great thing about you guys is that, you've got each other, but you've got your kids as well. Some of your family members
Yes.
work with you, and it really has, elevated the work into, it's I call your work classy work. Do you know what I mean? It's really of a high, decent, a good vibration as well, and it's coming from the right place. And I mean, I've met a lot of people who channel, and will continue to meet people who channel. But that there's a teacher for everyone, and but there is a some amazing work that you do, and I think on your website as well that when people can sign up to that there's also what you call webinar videos as well, where Theo does is it weekly broadcasts Theo does?
We do them about twice a month. Yeah.
Twice a month.
Yeah,
sorry.
we do twice a month. Yeah, we've been doing quite a few lately. There's a number of great resources on our website right now. We have a small monthly membership, $12 a month that people pay, and there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of audio and video resources in there. We've been doing a number of complimentary webinars now for the last couple months, around what's been happening in our world and so forth. I think it's been providing a lot of comfort and a lot of clarification, a lot of wisdom about what's really going on, and some hope and some inspiration, as Theo is known for as well. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. There's videos they can watch. Just come into the site on the homepage there, and mess around and see what's going on.
Well, we're putting
Yeah.
that up on screen as well, and that is in the description below as well. How have you guys dealt with what's going on right now with the lockdown? I mean, obviously, I know when I met you back in the day, a lot of your work was done, on site, remotely as well. So, I mean, and also, how do you view what's going on right now as well? How does Theo view the current change in the whole world right now?
Well, Theo's been talking about this time for 4 decades. In the book, The Fifth Dimension, they were talking about the change coming in the fifth dimensionary energy that we are a part of, that's permeating our atmosphere now. And all this upheaval, they didn't describe specifically, but they described that there would be this chaos and that there would be a tremendous amount of change globally. They said political structures would change, we would realize we're a global economy. Well, we've done that. And so all of these foundational things will change for the better for all of us. They say we're one species on this planet, we're the human species, and that we are connected. And that this will give us the opportunity to expand that connection and to realize it and to come together, not as separate as there's been so much divisiveness that's been happening, but realizing that we're one and we're better and stronger together than we are apart. It's not us and them, it's us. And so I have a very optimistic view about this time because they talked about it. And over the years of working with them, they've told me things that are now coming to fruition. So it's interesting. Every day I'm wondering and watching what's next. And certainly the pandemic is been the greater awareness of that global community, the common unity of humankind, if you would.
Yeah, I would add too, Kevin, that the very first webinar we did back in March on the COVID-19, my very first question to Theo was, how, from your perspective, did you currently see our world? And they didn't even hesitate to say that when we look at your world, we see absolutely no borders. There are no borders. There's water, there are mountains, but there's no borders. And they've been talking about the emergence of the scientists and the artists as global leaders, a real common unity, a community coming together globally now. This is the time they were talking about. They just looked in the camera about a month ago, and they looked at us and they said, we told you about 2020. We've been telling you about 2020 for years. We just didn't tell you how it was going to happen. And they've been very clear, we're not going back to the old normal, the old way. We don't want to go back to that. So now we get the opportunity to up level, to enlighten everything that needed to be up leveled, that needed to have the spotlight shown on it. And that's what's happening. And they're very, very optimistic, very inspirational with regards to how our world's going to be on the other side of this. It will be a new world, a world that had to happen. And we've seen, just with regards to what's happening with the environment right now as well, the impact. So, for us personally, we work out of our home. We're very comfortable being in our home, actually, socially and so forth. So we haven't had a devastation in that regard. But we feel the feelings that everybody's going through. We see the devastation that's happening. We know that there's some tough times coming. So what we've been doing with our work with Theo is trying to provide as much wisdom, as much clarification and inspiration, hope through the various programs and the various complementary offerings that we're doing as well, to provide people a community, a place to come and to be engaged and comforted and inspired.
Yeah,
And informed.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, as you say, things aren't going to be quite the same, and even economically, get the words out. With so much got changed within, businesses as well. Working from home. The global loss of jobs as well. The strains it's had on the banks. There's so much has shifted so quickly, just through a virus of all things that who would have thought it would have been a pandemic. And as Sheila was saying there, it's sort of bringing the human race together a little bit. I do see that people are a bit more loving, a bit more kind. How are you doing? Are you okay? Nice to see you. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
just a small thing sometimes. And I'm sure this isn't the only shift we're going to go through, right?
Right.
There will be more, but what a way to give people self-isolation to really, look within, in a sense, and to, am I on the right course? Am I doing the right type of work? Am I living in purpose? What have I done with my life so far? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And what can we do now? How can we use this time? I mean, by the way, this is a great time to do nothing. Let's be clear about that as well. To relax, to recharge our batteries, but it's also equally as great a time, I think, to be able to take a look at our lives and say, okay, let's not get a year down or 6 months down the road and look back and go, oh man, I kind of wasted that time when I could have been. I could have been doing this. I could have been working on my inner world. I could have been meditating more. I could have been developing my intuition and my psychic awareness. Just by virtue of making a commitment to my spiritual growth, and whatever it is, it's just a rich time to be on the inner planes and to really be, taking a look at just what areas of our lives could use a little bit of up leveling or a little bit of attention, and come out of this feeling better, maybe being a little healthier, maybe a little more spiritually connected, and maybe a little bit more inspired for what's next.
Right, absolutely. So, do you think that in times like this, when things have fallen apart in some respects, they have, right, and in others they're the same. But do you think in these times, we need to go into those hidden abilities a bit more, to be able to listen to that inner voice, and that to know that we've all got the inner voice. Yes, we've got access right now to Theo, and it's like someone doing the house cleaning for us in a sense, but we have that ability as well, but in a different way. We've all got different hidden abilities.
Exactly.
Every everybody has them. You're absolutely right. That is unique to you in the sense of how you receive information, how you connect to your intuition. We're all kinetically aligned. Our body is our biggest sensor. And from the moment of human existence, we've had the innate ability to know if we're safe. And that's a sensory perceptivity to know if we're safe it's survival, if we're safe in the environment we're in. Well, as we have evolved physically and intuitively, which is now, we recognize that we're receiving guidance and information in the way that we can psychologically and emotionally comfortably get it. People will say, "Oh, that was a synchronicity." No, it wasn't. It was your intuition that directed you there, or a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. We are great manifestors. Theo says they see us as the divine master beings that we are, and that each and every one of us is unique. Each and every one of us has an energy that nobody else has to express. That's what we came here to do. That's why we incarnated. And so it's going on the inner, to Marcus's point, having this time to go inside. Who am I? We have been so outwardly focused, and we're getting messages all the time. So this quiet time is a time to start listening.
So this quiet time, in a sense, with the shift that's happening, is a time to sort of go within and enhance those abilities. It's an enhancement in a sense, because what choice have you got? Well, you've either got the choice of listening, that to know that because there's been a lot of people with mental stress and
Mhm.
mental health issues that have just risen in a sense because of being so isolated and stuff, it's, you know, it's been very difficult for a lot of people, right? I remember when it
Mhm.
first happened. Oh my God, I could just feel people's pain. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, God, it
Yeah.
was so painful the first few days of going in lockdown, because it's just like, what, you know, what's going on? You know, it's just the,
Yeah, the
you know,
fear, and then
yeah.
the misinformation
Well,
too.
I was,
No,
yeah.
if people were being told the truth, you know, we're resilient. Humans are resilient. The survival instinct in this time, it became rampant. Not knowing what was going to happen. Oh my God, am I going to survive this? Well, my belief is we're going to survive this being better still. But of course, that fear, I felt it too, Kevin. And, the fear for our well being. Most of us have never experienced anything like this in our lifetime. That's happened before, but in our lifetime. And we are so connected globally. We can see each other, we can hear each other, we can know what's happening in the world, and that kind of magnification and of anything, of good things and also things not so good, and the misinformation traveling around the world created fear. Just tell me the truth. I can handle it. Just tell me the truth, and then you can decide how to navigate it.
Absolutely, and Marcus, I'll just let you comment. I just want to say that, yeah, I know that there was so much fear from, you know, conspiracy fear as well. I call it fear porn, because it just, you know, it just sells. You know, fear sells in a sense. But I know that's one thing that's Theo's never sort of pushed. It's always been, you know, of love and you know, of hope. Do you know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
we are the power we were looking for, in a sense. Um, but I guess it's shone that light within many of this community, that actually, yeah, misinformation, disinformation, it's a difficult thing. But then they could turn that onto you and say, well, how do we trust with, you know, that it is all love and light? You know, what if it's not? What if there's another side to that, we, you know, that we're missing out, and we're being, you know, encaged, or, you know, whatever the conspiracy may be of that particular, you know, time, whatever it is. But I mean, I believe we got free will. Do you know what I mean?
We do. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about that. No doubt.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of pillars here, Kevin. I want to just mention briefly. You know, we could talk about the intuitive gifts that we all have and the development of those through Theo's teachings, because Theo does give us tools for that. But they also give us tools for those that are very empathetic, to not hold the energy, to not hold the fear, to not hold whatever they're picking up from others through the emotional body. And it's significant. And a lot of people, a lot of your viewers are very psychic, very empathetic. There's no question that they're empaths. So Theo's giving us tools also for how to identify what's ours and what's not. And when we do identify what's not ours, what to do with it, you know, so it's not in our emotional field at all, and we're not affected emotionally by it. So these are just some additional tools that Theo's been giving us to navigate these times.
Sheila, go ahead. Thank you, Marcus.
You know what? Whatever I was going to say flew right out my head. And when it comes back, I'll say, it came back. I got to say it now or it'll be gone.
You will be interrupted, Kevin, at some point.
No.
No doubt
Yeah.
about it.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, okay, yeah. Well, I guess there's, you know, sort of spiritual transformational experiences which shift us into these new directions. And obviously, you know, like Sheila, you know, obviously you've had a near-death experience, and sometimes it can be like a pandemic, or what we're going through now, right? Or it can be, you know, it can be a number of other mystical experiences, kind of, that shift us. But then also there's the long-term sort of spiritual transformation as well, and that's kind of what Theo is teaching, in a sense, to build on those basic skill sets for long-term spiritual transformation, and what some of the great side effects of that can be. You know, we can, there's so much positivity from being able to tune into that intuition, to be able to become a bit more psychic. But then again, some people might not like that psychic aspect of it, but that's just human language, isn't it? For it's almost the same thing, isn't it? Intuition and psychic.
Yes. And a lot of people are turned off by psychic because there's been so many negative connotations and fear-based movies and things like that, or comments that people, they start getting afraid of it. But intuition, knowing, inner power, inner knowing, when we tap into that and we begin to remember and know how powerful we really are, and that we have that with us all the time, that it's not just a one-off thing, because we all have evidence in our lives where something has happened that got our attention intuitively and turned out to be right. Affirmed us, confirmed our knowing. We had a prophetic dream, or we just knew something was going to happen, or even as simple as before caller ID, when somebody would call you on the phone and you just knew who it was without a doubt, and answered the phone, and oh my gosh, there's that person you were just thinking about. Well, those kinds of things are normal and natural to us, and they're happening all the time. Oh, I remembered what I was going to say. I'll say it quick. Don't forget your thought. Um, I I was thinking, oh shoot, it went away again. You know what my grandmother would have said? I guess it didn't need to be said.
It's
It will come
bouncing
back.
in and out.
Yeah.
It probably
It
wants
will.
to come out at some
It does
point.
want to
It
come
will.
out.
I'll blurt it out when it
Well,
comes back.
There's so much we could say right now, and I know, and there's so many aspects we could go on from here. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think when people want to give their power away to someone else, right? That's and that's happened so much. I mean, nothing to say bad about religion, right, in wrong respects, but it's tell me what to think, do, and say sometimes, right, rather than well, what would my loving side say to answer in that situation? Do you know what I mean? Do I find there's some atheists I meet, I'm some of the most loving sort of spiritual people, even that they will hate me to say that, right? But they do come from religion's played an amazing part, I guess, in some respects, and also a very, very awful part in our history, right? As the human being, but also I think we seem to be moving. There's many people I speak to nowadays that are sort of moving away and get into the spiritual side, but then get caught up in the conspiracy side to begin with, and then eventually sort of move away from that. I mean, I always found that conspiracy, there was never an answer. It was answerless in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Where the spiritual side at least gave some answers. Yeah. But everyone's on their own unique journey, aren't they? And you wouldn't want someone coming to you to say, well, Theo's the only answer. That's not what your work's about. Theo kind of puts the answer back onto you. Theo will guide you in a sense, but it's still coming. It's got to come from you in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marcus.
I was just going to say, what's happening too is as people are awakening to the power of their own personal experience as opposed to being told by some outside source. And one of our mottos, it's an old Sufi saying that only a fool believes another's word over their own personal experience, right? So people are waking up spiritually. They're having these multidimensional experiences. When you put your foot on this path, as you know, Kevin, and as your viewers know, there's no turning back, but there are side roads along the way that you're describing, misinformation, conspiracy theories, all, in my opinion, embedded, or all, I should say, generated from a desire to know truth. And we take some funny roads sometimes in order to get to that place, right? We hear things that sound good, and we kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit, or we hear that right now there's this thing about 5G, of course, and Theo's got some really interesting thoughts about that, by the way, in terms of it. Well, you can ask about it later if you want, but there's so much when we set our foot on this path of awakening, and we begin to understand ourselves as multidimensional beings. We are spiritual light beings inhabiting a human suit, as Theo calls it, here to learn emotions like Sheila was talking about. And now, interestingly, in the fifth dimensionary frequency that we're living in right now, which they've been talking about for decades, we have the ability to express ourselves that way. We have the ability to go beyond our five senses, to go beyond the third dimensional reality, to travel out of our body, to do remote viewing, to collapse time and space, to have these fantastic experiences, and also have the little tiny ones moment to moment, day to day, that Sheila was talking about, these what people consider coincidences or synchronicities that our soul's creating perfectly for us. It's a magical time without magical thinking, if that makes any sense. So there's no hysteria in our world. There's no conspiracy theories. Theo debunks them very clearly, says no, but with the emphasis on the fact that don't worry about, you don't have to believe us, Theo, on the fact that that conspiracy theory may not be true. You know the truth, and the tools that they give us are to be empowered that way to know our own truth when we hear it. The BS barometer, if you will, or the truth barometer that we were talking about earlier. We all have that. Yeah.
I remembered the 5G thing. When Theo was talking about 5G and the energy is there, it's always been there, like electricity. These companies are learning how to align with it to give us the bandwidth that we need for our computer usage. But some people were talking and asking Theo about 5G and all of this conspiratorial thing that it's bad for us. And Theo said, no. And just what I said, that it's always been here. It's like electricity. You've learned how to use it. And then they said, we didn't believe in Y2K either. And they didn't. When that came out, they kept saying, no, that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. So they've led us always to be empowered, not to give our power away. I know in our course that we're doing it, spiritual and psychic exploration. It's a course we're going to start right away, actually. And it's empowering people. When you learn how you receive and how open and connected you are, it's like you think, I can do anything. After you're affirmed and confirmed that you are that person that is so connected, it is really empowering. And then you begin to trust it more. It's like any muscle that you work. We call it you're working your psychic and spiritual muscles. Anytime you practice and work at something, you get better at it and stronger at it. So we encourage people to use all the gifts you have, use all the information. It's there, it's inside you.
And that voice that comes back sometimes, we're not all going to be channelers, we're not all going to be mediums, but we all have a soul, right? We all have the innate right to connect back to our higher self, or whatever you want to personify it as. But it's almost like the voice comes back as your voice, but it's a more kind of knowing, it's wise, it's loving, it's affirmative, it's all those things that are the best aspects that we could ask for ourselves, and it's just there, isn't it? But we don't want to listen to it, do we? Or as you said earlier on, it's within. But also sometimes when we've asked and we don't get an answer, maybe sometimes, but maybe that's because we're not supposed to know. Maybe there's some journey that we're on that we've got to see through, that it wouldn't help us to know. Can that be true?
Correct.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, Theo spoke about this time, and this would be changing the world. But in our webinar that we did about COVID a few weeks ago, they said, we've talked about this for many decades. We've talked about this. And this time, we just didn't want to tell you what it would be. Imagine us knowing, in 2020, there's going to be this world pandemic, and there's going to be a lot of people get sick and die. And, what if they had told us that? How would we have lived our lives? In fear. We wouldn't have, we wouldn't have lived
Well, it was
as
fearful,
we've been living,
wasn't it? I mean, the one conversation that we all were having at one point was around death, and it was a very uncomfortable kind of conversation for most people to have, because people don't want that conversation. They think we're going to live, well, we don't maybe think we're going to live forever, but they don't want to, think about that, that we're not taking anything with us, and that, is there something beyond this? And if there is there some way that we could tap into that, to bring it into the moment now, to live a better version of ourselves? Is there something we could bring from that space? But I'll be honest with you, anytime I've gone deeper, even in with you guys, we went pretty deep, it all went back to present moment. No matter how deep you go about parallel realities and all this stuff,
Yep.
it's still, the answer really came back to right now, here is where our power is.
Yeah, Theo's been focusing on that a lot lately, and well, forever. I mean, those are Theo's teachings, and it's all about being. They've been talking about unconditional love as a vibrational state of being, not an emotional state, but rather a vibrational state. Um, what would love do as the leading question in any circumstance or condition that arises? It's all about that, and this in presence, like you said, it all comes back to that present moment awareness, where all of our needs and desires, as they say frequently, are always met in that moment. And yeah, if we just embody that, it's going to assist us in getting through this time and emerging on the other side of this in a really, really positive way.
And let's go back to thank you for that. That's so true. Just going back to the course that you mentioned there as well. Obviously, I know about the course. We spoke about it before we came online, that you're doing the course. I've made a link for the course as well. So if you go to channeling.com/Theo, that will take you to the course as well. I'm linking the course in the description as well. And I think it's a very timely course, because obviously, it's always, I know you've talked about this type of work again and again, the intuition, the psychic, but never has there been a time when it's more important, right? Because it's, we're struggling so much, aren't we, a lot of us right now? And just going back to what we were saying before about, yes, it would have been very scary to know the future, wouldn't it? If Theo had come out and said, 2020, over 100,000 dead, almost in America now, in other countries, it's just everything that happened, we wouldn't have been able to cope. We don't, there's some things about the future or the timeline that we don't need to know, because it's not in our best interest, is it? Do you know what I mean? You can see
Well,
that.
it would skew our life. It would skew how we would interact on that moment to moment basis, and our soul's here to get the learning and draw into itself those opportunities of learning, as it always will. But if you came and talked to Theo, and Theo said, oh, on September 15th, you're going to have a horrible car accident and be paralyzed, what would you do from now till September 15th? You would be paralyzed already in fear about that event. So it's and those are probabilities and possibilities. They're in the future, just like we're manifesting our future all the time. So when people ask futuristic kinds of things, if everything it stays the same as it is this moment energetically, and the outcome of whatever is perceived the future will be that, if everything stays the same. But those are just probabilities, because there's so much change in us, and we are the creators. So it's, when somebody would ask Theo, is this or that going to happen? They'd say, well, is it? You're the one creating it. Do you see yourself there? And they would lead them into having that future vision themselves and believing in it and creating it. And then it does happen. And usually much more quickly, because the person has let go of their lack of belief or their resistance to having what they want to have, the life they want to live. But that's not giving the power away, but stepping into power.
Do you think when an event like this happens, that, and we're talking about intuition and developing your psychic self, that is the kind of evolution, the destiny of humanity, is to be in connection with the true nature of who it really is, for whatever, eons above this time, beyond this time, right, that we're heading towards, that there's some sort of, this is part of the evolution, is if we became more this way, we would see thy neighbor. Do you know what I mean? We would see
Yes.
the I am within ourselves. We wouldn't need to pick up a book and try to figure, we would just know that there is something more here, and it's got there's a best interest at heart as well. Do you know what I mean? For our
Yes.
progression, is their progression, it's our soul's progression. There's some, but we still have to have this reality, though, don't we? Do you know what I mean? We still,
Hmm.
we don't want to.
This is where we're learning it,
Yeah,
right? This is
yeah.
where we're in that discovery. And the fifth dimensionary energy is allowing us to have that realization, the revelation of who we really are. And so it's kind of, I'm thinking of Esther Hicks right now. When Theo told her that, they told her, "You don't need to come talk to us again because you're going to do this." And she was like, "What?" And she was actually really nervous about it and fearful because of how she'd grown up and had all those stacked up beliefs that she'd been told about being psychic or spiritually connected, and so of which many of us have. So we tend to resist that knowing, and hence that's how our class, our mentoring program came about, because it's debunking those fears. When people like, Marcus, what is share that saying that you so often say about personal experience. I love that.
Well, I was just quoting it just regarding, only a fool believes another's word over their own personal experience. And this,
Say it slowly.
only a fool believes another's word over their own personal experience.
Yeah, see, I love that.
And as you're talking too, Kevin, um, the beauty of Theo's mentoring is, number one, is that they're going to, you come out of this 12 weeks together with us so empowered, having had so much fun, and with no fear going forward. We're all inherently fearful of the unknown, particularly when we get into different dimensional realities and wiring from our religious upbringings, perhaps, about the demonic and all that. The fact of the matter is that we are always in control. You can conjure that up if you want. That's probably not even a good word for it. You can create that if you want to in your imagination, as Theo says. But we've chosen not to do that. We know that we're completely in control at all times. We have nothing to fear, literally, in these psychic realms that we're talking about. As we move into our multidimensionality, Theo's been talking about the veils between the dimensions being very thin right now. I mean, there's 12 dimensions about the earth that we can tap into while still in human form. And what they've been talking about, and Sheila, it's so interesting you're just talking about 5G and 6G, because Theo's been talking about 5D, fifth dimensional reality. And they've even started to give us a glimpse of what it's going to look like still in this lifetime as we move into the sixth dimensional reality, which is the expression, the full expression in and out of the physical body of these multiple dimensions above us or around us, or however you want to describe it, right? Because they're around us. So they're giving us glimpses of our abilities as it relates to some things that are really, really cool that we get to do in human form in and out of our physical bodies while we're still alive in this
Well,
incarnation.
and Marcus, to Kevin's point, Theo's been talking about this time, and it's a tremendous shift of consciousness.
Totally. Yep.
And that was your point about what was happening. That this is an extraordinary time. In fact, Theo says it's an exquisite time to be alive, to be here now for this shift of consciousness.
I think so. Do you know that? I really do. I was thinking about that a few days ago, actually. You just reminded me of what I was thinking. And I think, anyone that's doing this type of work or doing a course like yourself, they could be improving they might be a creative writing that comes out from it. Do you know what I mean? There may be, it doesn't have to be the voice. Do you know what I mean? It could be expressed, by writing. Maybe they're going to go on and teach. Maybe it's for their business. Do you know what I mean? Because businesses have got to see it from a different perspective a little bit right now, and I'm sure they are. and that maybe, what we thought we had planned for our life is something completely different right now. Do you know what I mean? With something as large as this kind of shift. So no, I see the importance of what you're trying to do here, and and I guess what you're offering here as well is a sort of mentoring, the sort of one-to-one as well, because obviously you can only speak to and do so many readings. I mean, you kind of your work's expanded into this type of teaching as well, so that you can offer it to more people, which I think is great. Or maybe it could be someone watching this that's thinking, well, it's not that I want to expand my intuition or psychic. I'm just lonely and I'm suffering from anxiety or whatever it may be. But then again, by tuning into yourself, you'll find that could be healed through listening to that wise inner voice. You're never alone. You were never alone.
That's true.
That
That's
is
true.
Yep.
Very much so.
Yeah. So, just obviously we've been talking about the course. Just tell us about the course just a little bit, Marcus, as well. So what that entails as well.
Yeah, it's 13 weeks. It's 12 weeks. We have 13 sessions. We have a bonus session that we do called Collapsing Time and Space and Past Life Recall, which is a really fun week. We create a lot of guided meditations for this, very custom meditations with Theo for our group. Kevin, it's very interactive, very experiential. Sheila's designed this course. This is Sheila's baby. She's been talking about this for years, and we rolled it out a few years ago, and we realized that people want to, going back a little bit to that empowerment theme, the knowing we're always in control theme, but yet we can really expand and go out there into some of these multidimensional experiences. So each week there's personal mentoring with Theo. We meditate. We have experiential psychic experiences. It's like a adult psychic playground, if you will. What people find a lot of abilities that they discover a lot of abilities through their personal experience with us in this program that they did not know they had. And when you leave a program like that, or when you have a personal experience like that, your life is never the same again. And in this time now, and I will candidly tell you, Kevin, that we've significantly reduced the investment in this program to honor the times and to honor those that are being affected by this right now, in an effort to make it available to as many people as possible. And because of the magic of this technology that we're on right now, we can have so much fun playing together with smaller groups when it's appropriate, or of course being in the larger group experience. But having that personal mentoring from Theo is really amazing, and the people connecting from around the globe, because we do a lot of things both before and after each class that allows people through various technologies, including breakout groups here with Zoom and that kind of thing. We have an opportunity to get to know each other and discover soul family. So it's Tuesdays. It's from 5 to 6:30 Pacific time here in the States, and 90 minutes. And boy, it's a super fun time that we get together each of those weeks. And the feedback that Sheila and I have received over the course of the years we've been doing this is that people come away feeling more empowered. They come away feeling more spiritually connected. So there is a spiritual growth. We emphasize the intuitive and the psychic, but it's a deep dive too, experientially into their own interconnectedness, their own spiritual connectedness that occurs through this program as well. So it's just fun, empowering, and very experiential.
Each week, Kevin, there's a curriculum, and we talk about each way of receiving, whether we're auditory or visual or sensory. We do many of the different. We experiment with many of the different ways of receiving. We talk about dreams. We talk about clairaudience, clairvoyance. We call them the clairs. We describe what they are and how you receive, and to pay attention. How do you learn? We all have a dominant way that we learn. Some people are very visual learners. Some people are auditory learners. That's how they get their information and disseminate it best, through hearing it. And others may by reading or seeing. And then there's kinetic experience of by doing, by getting in there and having the texture of it and feeling that. So we talk about all these ways that we can receive, but we begin with the dominant way because that's what's comfortable to us and acceptable.
And just look what could change from that. There's so much change that can come from, I just know there is. And I know even for myself, I don't listen to my inner voice enough. And whenever I haven't, it's there's been some lessons to learn. I'll say that, right? And they're still ongoing, right? They never leave us because we're always going to be tested, aren't we? This tuning into the inner voice is always something that's going to serve us and it's only going to grow, isn't it? In a sense, only going to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no, it's funny, you're talking about this now. I've had other guests come on just recently wanting to talk about this as well because it's just the time that we live in, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? This is like, it's a bit of a wake up call. And do you think that your work's evolving? I mean, I know you're always going to do the courses, but do you feel that going through this shift, that there's maybe something else on the other side for you guys that you're maybe not aware of, but you can sense it?
Well, we're always creating, and we have this program, but we're working on a great program called The Art of Relationship, and it's a book. Theo told us 3 years ago. Marcus asked Theo, "Okay, what's next? What do you want to do, Theo?" And Theo said, "Relationships," and it's the relationship to the self predominantly, and then all other relationships. And it's been quite exciting. We've got video, we've got the book, and it's coming together. The editing is getting done now, so that's a new project that we have, and it's also a mentoring program. But we'll have this whole new product for people to.
Well, I think with people being in isolation so long as well, I think it'll come in useful. But I mean, no, I mean, the relationship, that's such a big one. That is, forget everything else we've talked about. That's also another, story in its own right. Another whole, you could focus just on that, couldn't you?
Yes.
Oh, it's a huge
Yeah,
topic.
it's a huge topic.
They were very insistent. It's called The Art of Relationship, Angelic Insights for Creating Soulful Human Connections. It's going to be an online program in a book. But I think to your question, Kevin, I think that our work evolves as humanity evolves, and as Theo. Expresses even more. I mean, we've seen the evolution of Theo speaking through Sheila, for instance, over the years. It's been remarkable. And I think that like I say, our work evolves as humanity evolves, but it also we just stay real present with what we're being guided to do, both in our higher guidance, that voice that we hear, and also from Theo, who are our mentors and our
What I like about Theo as well is that you can ask him most questions, or them, her, right?
Yes.
You can ask that, and you can keep it current as well. They'll tune into that. And yeah, what you said there's kind of exciting that Theo expands as we expand as well. There's more to Theo, which is interesting. I know people could look at that in different ways. Well, Sheila, you're expanding as well, and you're getting to know more, and it opens you up to bringing more through. But maybe it is a two-way thing as well. But that's incredible. That's yeah.
I believe it is two-way, because their information is so vast. We have to be able to understand it. And so we have all been evolving to be able to handle the knowledge that is coming forth now, to be available to it, and to really to get it, because what good would it be if we didn't understand it, right? And I remember when I wrote the book, The Fifth Dimension. It was written in the 80s. And so I thought, oh my gosh, everybody knows this stuff, because I had been living it, and of course talking to people that understood what I was talking about. So I'm thinking nobody's going to buy this book because everybody knows this. Well, lo and behold, not everybody knew it at all. the book came out. It was published by Simon and Schuster, and I would get stopped in airports. Oh, you're that woman. You're that person that wrote that book. And I'd say yes. And they go, took me 5 reads to understand it. I had to read it more than once. And I'm like shocked. I was shocked because I had been living it. And isn't it true? Whatever we're doing, we just assume everybody knows that. It's like my youngest daughter, my children were very small when this work happened through me, and they grew up with a mother that did this work with Theo. And my daughter, she was born at my near-death experience, so that's all she knew her mom to do. And so up until about the 1st grade, she thought everybody's mother was a channeler. Because that's what moms did. So it's kind of what we think about and what we're privy to, and we just have a tendency to think that everybody knows this. And the fifth dimensionary book, the fifth dimension book, is relevant today because what's happening today is what they were talking about in the book, in the prophetic part of it.
Do you know, I remember I was with this channeler, that channel's source, and she said it was in a break. It was in Texas somewhere, and she says, I've talked about this pandemic that's going to hit the world, but I don't know if I want to talk about it. I was like, oh, that's just, let's not. It just sounds a bit doom and gloom, right? And I heard this in the take. That was my voice. That was right. And I was like, oh my God! If only I had just asked her. And this was way before the pandemic and everything else, right? So this message. My point is, it's been brought through others.
Yes.
In different ways. But no, I don't. I mean, how many times have we heard about a big shift that was coming? I still think there's much more, right? Not just from this pandemic, but I mean, I think there's other ripple effects from this in a sense. Nothing we can't get through, but there is change on the way. I mean, maybe 2023 is another year of change. Who knows? I don't know why I mentioned that year, but who knows? But yeah, so I think it's come through different people. I mean, this is how these things work. Sometimes they do, and but I think the work that you do and just the quality of it is second to none. And I think with what you're offering as well, some people may come to you and they may want to channel. And I think back in the day when you were channeling and you had your near-death experience, I mean, just look at it now. Look how many there are out there. I mean, I've covered a small fraction of them. Do you know what I mean? There are so many people, doing this right now. Yes, we have to use discernment. Of course we do. We have to use discernment in everything that we do. And I think Theo would be the first to say that as well, wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they told me about this, and that's why I knew in the beginning that I wanted to be a mentor to others that were awakening and opening up, because I didn't have anybody other than the angels to assist me to really know what was going on and how to teach. They taught me, and then I worked with scientists that tested me for my psychic ability, and I learned about the things that we teach in our course about psychics and spiritual evolution. And so, now I can look back over the years and see how integral everything that I've done is so important for right now. And it's been affirmed and confirmed all the way along. So I'm tremendously optimistic about what's going to happen, and actually enthusiastic about it, because I they've been telling me for 50 years all of these things, and I have no doubt, because there's been so many confirmations throughout the years, that it's like, okay, we'll keep putting one foot in front of the other. And like Theo says to us, when we get fearful, when we get nervous, we're too far into the future. We need to draw ourselves back to the moment and ask, are all my needs and desires met this moment? It's not that you don't want things to be different or change, but you're okay right now. Stay in that now.
Absolutely, and not everyone's going to be ready to listen to Theo, right?
No.
Just like many other messages, right?
Yeah.
You know, some souls are at different levels, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Or different
Oh, sure. Yeah.
evolutional processes. I mean, maybe some have
Mm-hmm.
only had. I mean, I'm using words here that I don't know are true or not, but maybe some have not reincarnated that many times, right? Or
That's
it's
true. Yeah.
or it's something else. It's something else,
Mm-hmm.
which it's not
Mm-hmm.
even that. If all time's the same, maybe it's not that at all. Maybe that's the way we perceive it, but it's actually something much bigger than that.
Well,
Maybe
that is, by the way, exactly what you just. I'm sorry to interrupting you, but that's exactly what Theo talks about in terms of that's the younger soul, older soul conversation. And and young
Yeah.
souls and old souls, the only difference between a younger soul and an older soul is the older souls have had more incarnations to what you just said, Kevin. That's exactly how Theo describes the difference between in younger souls and older souls. Just different. It's not better or worse or good or bad, nothing like that. It's just a different level of awareness based upon
Well,
the emotional maturity that has been developed through the various lifetimes.
and it's human experience.
Just human experience. Yeah, we're
It
just talking about
it's
in this
just
physical.
in Earth experience,
Yeah,
because they say soul age when they're talking in that context isn't about the totality of the soul. It's about just Earth human
yeah,
experiences, and that's and to your point, Kevin, we learn so much about how to be human in incarnations, and those who haven't had very many, they don't know, and those who have had many incarnations have developed a sense and knowing of how to interact and how to be a human.
yeah.
So it's a good point that you brought up.
well, I bring that up because since I last saw you, you kind of know where my work's gone a little bit. Yes, I'm making a murder docu-series. Yes, I'm interviewing people in prison. I'm seeing a whole other side to life, right? You could call it the
Mm.
dark, or you could call it the unevolved soul. You could call it people with mental health. You could call it an accumulation of all that, right? Mixed in and,
Mhm.
mishmash and everything. Or it is, it's facing the reality of where, I didn't want to, leave this world and say, well, we never looked at those subjects or that, just stuck with the light. Do you know what I mean? Well, what about the others that take a different path, and the ripple effects that causes people and everything else, right? So, what's my point here? My point is, I suppose, um, those souls that have gone into those different directions or done things that need to be kept away from society, right? What I wonder what their soul evolution is. I mean, or why they've done that. Were they brought? Do they come down just on a different level to say, I'm going to be the victim, you be the culprit. You know what I mean, or the whatever, and we'll play these roles and we'll have a jolly good time and get to experience something that we couldn't experience from the level that we came from, right? Or
Mhm.
can things happen that aren't in a life plan, if even a life plan exists? Do you know what I mean? That we actually have complete free will. There is no actual life plan that we have to live by. There's free will. And sometimes we can take decisions that aren't based from love. And that's the consequence of it.
Yes, I believe that that's true. And Theo often has told us, don't judge anybody. You don't know what their soul's path is and what their purpose. They may be the greatest teacher here. It's just that each being comes to have the experience, the human experience, and to learn an earth school, um, and to learn compassion and love. And learning those things are emotional. The greatest thing we come to learn is emotions here.
Yeah, but you're so right when you say we don't learn to judge, because that's kind of the reason I've done it for. Just the other night, I was reminding myself, why am I doing this other side of my work for? Why am I doing this? It's so that you're showing people not to judge. That's because that's what you're doing. But that's not to say that there's not a wrong or right. I mean, hell, if
Sure.
if someone did that to someone that I loved, there would have to be. There's always a consequence, isn't there, for anything that we do, in a sense.
And there needs to be.
Mm.
We live in a society, And there needs to be rules in that, and how we treat each other, and how we know what our personal rules are, our core values. What's important to us? What do we live by? Some people would have called it our creed, or credo. It's who we are on the inner. And some choose to come into a life. They choose the environment we as souls do. And so being in that environment can often dictate the human experience,
And it's important.
and most often does.
Yeah, and it's important to also remember, and Theo points this out fairly frequently, Kevin, that there's no soul is greater than another. Even though a soul may have had less human experience than others, and maybe the human experience is expressed in a much more compassionate and loving and kind and wise way with one person, another person becomes a serial killer. That serial killer has a purpose for being here. And it has a lot to do because we don't know the soul's plan. We don't know the soul family that made these decisions prior to incarnation. There was an awareness of what this life was going to be like, and certainly there's free will that is expressed in collaboration with that. But we don't know all the learning that serial killer's world received, and the growth, and the who knows? We just don't know, right? And so for us to judge is inappropriate. Yes, that's an awful thing to do. But Theo's also said we've all been the perpetrator and we've all been the victim in previous incarnations. And again, because to Sheila's point, we incarnate for the learning of emotions. And so it just seems easier for some than others, but that's the reason why.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add all that into this wonderful mix. I'm not trying to dirty the water, but I'm just trying to just see, just different facets, just different angles, different things. We don't want to talk about all that kind of stuff sometimes, but I mean, it's reality just as much as
Yes.
we live in this
Yes.
reality. Let's we could have that.
Well, in the spectrum of emotions, there's this whole spectrum of emotions, and there's all these good emotions here, but down here are the really uncomfortable ones, and we try to avoid the uncomfortable ones. And that's what you're talking about. Life is this whole spectrum. Theo said something the other day, which I went, yes, that's true, because we try to avoid the uncomfortable emotions and the topics that you're talking about because they're uncomfortable. But Theo said, if you're looking at a rainbow, would you say, oh, take the orange out, I don't like that color? No, you wouldn't have the spectrum of color, the beauty of it, if you took anything out of it. So they described human life like that, which really got me. I mean, it really made sense to me because it's vibrational frequency too. And that's what we're working with. But I love that analogy.
That's amazing. I'm going to remember that one. That's such an easy one to remember, but it's so truth. That's so true, isn't it? God, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, well that's a food for thought. That is, yeah, definitely. And and it all comes back to intuition. If I only had listened to my more loving self, I wouldn't have took these actions. If only I'd done worked on myself. I know we're all born into certain conditions, but you see some amazing people who have come out the other end of the most depressing conditions. Do you know what I mean? And I've gone to really encourage and live a life as a shining example to many others. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be done.
Yeah, and in a simple example of the expression of this, Kevin, is the questions that people ask themselves. I mean, we all signed up for certain experiences. Our soul creates certain experiences for ourselves that if we were to say consciously, hey, we're going to give you this experience, it's going to be very painful, it's going to be very difficult. Oh, the growth and the learning is going to be amazing, not just for you, but for others. But it's going to be painful for you. We would have said, nah, no thanks, I don't want to sign up for that class, right? But we do sign up for that class, and we do have those experiences. And so once those experiences have happened, there's huge learnings. The question is, why is life happening to me as opposed to why is life happening for me? And that's a big distinction in terms of the perception that we have by virtue of being a victim on the one hand, or by virtue of being an empowered co-creator on the other. And in those experiences, all those experiences that were so difficult and challenging, that's where the massive growth happens. That's where the transformation happens. That's where the big moves, the quantum leaps happen, is in those experiences. If it's comfortable and easy all the time, we tend to get a little complacent, I think.
Yeah, and I think and you've got to want to do the work as well, just as they've got to, whoever students that you've worked with in the past, they're there because they really want to be there. They want that shift, they want that change, don't they?
They have seen, most people see significant changes in their consciousness and their awareness, and a huge transformation that takes place for those that embrace Theo's teachings and apply them. Yeah.
Okay, so I know it's we're almost at the end of the interview here, and I want to bring Theo in. So Sheila, if I just get you to explain just the process of bringing Theo in, and I'll give the floor to you.
Okay. Well, Theo has always come in the right side of my body, and they take over my neck, my vocal cords, my head, and then the entirety of my body. They've worked on my body to align vibrationally so that this direct voice, this direct communication could come through. And I'm very comfortable. I've been working with them for a lot of years, and so it's very comfortable for this to happen now. So I'll invite them in, and I'll talk to you after. Here we go. It is the beginning, is it not?
It is. Welcome, Theo.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to be of service unto you. You may ask.
Well,
Kevin,
Theo,
you want to take over?
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Theo, thank you for coming through. We last spoke, I guess it was just, not very long ago in your time, in a sense. But Theo, I just wanted to speak about, obviously, the current situation that we've been all experiencing right now with the coronavirus, and obviously the many changes that are taking place in people's lives. What message would you give to people right now in the sense of what we're going through, and what, how people can view this from a different perspective as well, and see the more positive change and that's going to take place?
Out of this time of chaos will come order. And it's important that you pay attention in your own personal experience. It's a time of empowerment, actually, of tapping into who you are. Not giving your power away externally. Pay attention. Know what you want. You are a magnificent manifester. And this is a time of grand consciousness shift for all human species. Globally coming together, recognizing your oneness, the alignment of who you are together, the strength of this, and the changes in the world for the better for all that are coming forth. Necessarily so, because you are living on one planet called Earth. You are a global species, highly connected, and doing the integrative work, recognizing the power of your soul, each and every one of you, shifts the consciousness that allows all beings in alignment to their higher power that will bring peace to your world. That's how important this time is. You may ask.
Thank you for that. And would you say that these changes are ongoing for at least the considerable future? Maybe not as severe as they have been, but there will be other changes that will ripple from this change.
Yes, tremendous change will come environmentally, in business. You're a global economy, new businesses to be formed, old structures, old foundational businesses going away, new education, new connectivity to broader thinking, and the ability of creation, knowing that you are master creators. So many things will be born from this time, this hermitage time for all. Many innovations, the science and the arts will be the leaders in this, collaborating together. But they are collaborative, not divisive. So that much will be brought forth creatively now that will enhance all of you.
So some of us, the career paths we thought we were going to have, or those which we resisted doing, the calling that we resisted sometimes, that's going to be called more into the present moment right now.
Yes. For what you'll recognize, being the master creators, manifestors that you are, that you're in charge. You can create what you desire.
We fear it
It is
sometimes.
a given.
We fear
Of
it,
course,
though. Yeah.
the fear is resistance, fear of success, fear of not success, fear of being accountable. There are those who would wish someone else to do it rather than themselves, because what if? Understand this. Fear and faith ask the same thing of you, to believe in something that's unseen, not created yet. So why not have faith and imagine the best possible life, a life well lived of your own creation? What would that look like? What would you love? How would you like to live? Paying attention to your physical structure, listening to what it speaks to you for optimum health. All of these things are requiring you to recognize the divine master, powerful being that you are. This is the time for it, not egotistically or narcissistically, but in the truth of your being and expressing it now.
You know, just speaking to you, what flashes in my head, I was going to ask the question, well, around this question of, you know, there's been a lot of conspiracy about, you know, the coronavirus, 5G and all this type of stuff. But at the same time, we humans have dealt with it in the sense of you know, taking that nonsense away, where people have been demonetized for putting such content out. People have been deplatformed. Do I feel that that's free speech? Well, not really. But I guess I'm answering my own question, that actually life has a way of taking care of such things like that when they're harmful to other people.
It does. Of course it does. And just like this virus, it's the environment telling you that you need to pay attention to your physicality and have optimum health and resources in doing what is appropriate for that health. This is all part of this evolution we're speaking about. The virus, yes, there will be vaccines for it, and you'll learn how to metamorphose with it, to live with it, and not let it have the power that it has now. It's virulent now because this is the new iteration. Your body has all kinds of viruses in it. This is a new iteration of a virus. Cancer is a virus. And what are they doing in science now? Learning that they can have a virus that will kill the virus of cancer. Understand this. Your body would metamorphose, will create its own immunities. And science brings forth miraculous things to assist you. Innovative. Why do you think you live as many years as you live now? And that will be extended through all this innovation that comes forward. It's not there to harm you, to make it better. Not to take away from you, but to empower you. Pay attention to that. The fearmongers only wish to control you. That's who wishes to control, to take away your power, Do not allow that. You know. Your higher power always knows within you. Go within and ask for your truth. Just ask, is this true? You have a barometer inside you that tells you the truth. Pay attention to it.
Absolutely. This is my next question was going to be absolutely. The inner voice, the voice within, the higher self, whatever you want to call it. We all have the ability to tap into that voice, and it will only be of love, wouldn't it? If we listen
It
to
would.
it. Yeah.
And always ask, what would love do in any situation? Yes? And many of these things that have been spoken about are fantastical. There's no intent in that, but to control. And that's what you're afraid of. But the person that's spewing out all of this misinformation is controlling you. You've already given your power away. Trust yourself.
Yeah, and we're the master manifestors, aren't we? We have all the power to
Yes.
create the reality that we really want. Not every opportunity or reality is there for us to take. I don't think, in a sense, like, that we have to be not realistic with it, but we have to know what really serves us. Do you know what I mean? What is it we really would love to do? But even
That's a key word. What would you love? What would make you wake up in the morning enthusiastic and appreciative?
that's the
With
hard one, isn't it?
gratitude. Yes.
Yeah,
But you all know what that is.
we fight it though,
But are
don't we?
afraid, you're
Yeah.
afraid to grasp it. The resistance is a belief that you don't deserve it. So who believes that inside of you? You can integrate that part of self that holds a belief and change that belief. For you all deserve a life well lived.
And sometimes we might, need to see that through, whatever it is that we think we would love to do, to see that through. And that takes time to see through. And maybe there's something beyond that curtain that we, move on to in the end. That's something else that we couldn't see right now, but we had to go through, through the process first to get there. Do you know what I mean? We trusted the process.
Of course. And it may diversify, it may enlarge. You take one step at a time and accomplish those things, and then it completes, and there's a new dream, there's a new thing to move forward on. But you'll see all the skills that you developed in moving towards the first thought, the first iteration. Yes?
Yes, most definitely. I hear you loud and clear, and I'm sure a lot of other people are listening right now and thinking, "Yep, I've been there, or I'm on that process."
We see that you're all in the process. You're here. And you have a great longevity. You're evolving physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. Trust that evolution. Yes? That's what you've come to do, to experience and to grow with.
Okay. Any final message that you might like to give the audience?
All is well. This too will pass, and you'll be better for it. And bless those souls that came as the teacher of this greater experience.
Until we speak again, thank you very, very much.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to serve. In your asking, it is given. You may call upon this energy at all times to assist you. God's love unto you. Good day.
So, Marcus, there you go. Yeah, and obviously you've interacted with Theo quite a bit, but that was great. That was great. Thank you, Sheila.
Welcome back.
You're
Sheila.
very welcome. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was, if there was other things I wanted to ask, but I thought, you know what, that's probably most important. Well, yeah.
Well, whenever you want to ask something else, Kevin, let me know.
Oh, there is actually, but yeah, I wanted just to keep this to the audience. yeah, there's lots. Yeah, waving the flag over here. Help, help. No, it's always nice, I think, with a reading sometimes to help. I've always said this since someone told me the saying. It's nice to have someone else clean your house for you, but you have to do the work yourself sometimes as well. I've learned how important that is, and I'm sure you both would agree with that. But yeah, there's a wonderful message there, and it's so true what Theo said. That that's well, a lot of what you said. I agree with Theo there, and I guess Marcus, you've heard, you've had so much interaction with Theo over the many years that yeah, you've heard a lot of this before, and it comes through again because that is their truth.
Well, Kevin, I say this at the end of virtually every mentoring program that we do. And I am smarter at the end of that 90 minutes than I was when we began, every single time. Our community asks questions that I would never think of. They ask questions in different ways. They have different topics that are of interest to them that I wouldn't, so it's always an amazing, joyful learning experience for me. And they say the teacher shows up when one is ready. When I first read the fifth dimension back in 1995, that Sheila was alluding to, was the catalyst for she and I to come together. When I read that book, it was exactly what I had been looking for. It filled in so many different spaces in my spiritual understanding and my personal experience, and it just continued. That's 23. That was 25 years ago. We met 23 years ago, and it's an ongoing day to day. If I'm not learning something every single day, I'm not asking the right questions.
I hear you. No, and I that's a great answer, by the way. Yeah, you're always learning something. Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. And just remind us just of the course just one more time so that we've got for the audience. So the course starts on
Tuesday,
and
the 26th. Yeah. So it starts
May 26th.
May 26th, right?
Okay, and this is the spiritual and psychic exploration with Theo. And how many weeks is that over?
It's 12 weeks.
12 weeks. Okay, so spread over so that you can cope with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's online, live. It's live interactive. It's not recorded. So, well, it is recorded at the time, but we're working with the clients live, like we are speaking right now.
Yes, got you. So there's the pre-recorded with the live, and then you've got the interaction with Theo and so much more. And again, all the details are on the website that's been coming up on the screen as well. In the description, you'll be able to find it there. I enjoy so much being in person with people. And, I find so many restrictions sometimes of doing, with a remote interview. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this. And just thank you both so very, very much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it. And your website, just one more time, and if people want to go there now, just ask Theo.
Yeah, just ask Theo.com.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's coming up on the screen.
Yeah, and there's some free gifts and lots of cool stuff when they get there as well, if they want to stay plugged in. And then the asktheo.com/PSY if they're interested in joining us on Tuesday.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys, listen, just thank you so much for this, and very much look forward to getting you back on, which I will do when my workloads kind of calm down, if ever it will do. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being in your company. Thank you.
It's been a delight being with you too, Kevin. We'll look forward to next time.
It's great to see you, always.